The entity who identifies itself as the President of the United States is currently working to erase our history in our museums, and we are allowing it to happen. I understand that there are people out there who have been protesting against this, who have been protesting, who have been fighting against this. But as I said, when we view ourselves by our nationality and we do not rally behind one another collectively, and we do not fight for independence, this is how we allow history to repeat itself. History is going to repeat itself because this country and the West are insistent on ensuring that we forget our history so that they can repeat it and this time execute their plan perfectly. It's all a part of the strategy. You see, we think that the reason why they want to erase our history, the reason why the entity who identifies itself as the President of the United States, why it would even say that the museums focused too much on how bad slavery was, and it did not focus on how good slavery was. The reason why the entity who identifies itself as president would say this is not because they are just trying to erase our history, just because, it's too hard for them to live with, because, they just don't want to think about it. They just don't want to see it. They just, want us to forgive and forget. It is because they are working on a plan to, as he said, make America great again. America is failing. Capitalism here is failing. Slowly but surely it is failing, and people see it. That is why when we from the transatlantic, when we come to the United States and we believe that, we just want to get here, we just want the American dream, we do not want to get involved. When we believe this and we come here to the United States, okay, thinking that it's just about the American dream, we don't realize how much we are helping make sure that this country gets away with the atrocities of its past. The entity who identifies itself as the President of the United States, its plan, and whether you are Democrat or Republican, it does not matter what party you are. It is the plan for the United States to make itself wealthy again by any means necessary. It's all about money. Everything is about money when it comes to the West. Everything has always been about money. So, although they are using gaslighting and narcissism, they're using their tools to distract us and alter our history so that it can make them look better. It is all for profit so that they can make money. Because when the truth is revealed, and it's no longer oral history, when it's actually in textbooks globally and known globally, how many people do you really believe from the transatlantic would really want to support this nation, would really want to come over here and work for less than what they are owed? When you get into a relationship, a lot of times you ignore the red flags on purpose. You ignore the red flags that tell you that this person may be narcissistic. You ignore the red flags that tell you that this person is manipulative. You ignore the red flags that tell you that this person is controlling, abusive. You get into this relationship. Why? Why do you ignore the red flags and get into this relationship anyway? Yes, it could be for financial support, but most of the time it's because of the aesthetic. It's because of how this person looks, because we are chasing hormones and lust, confusing it with love. Especially us in the Black African community, especially when we defend our partners who identify as white, who have no intention of storming the Capitol for you over the fact that this country wants to erase your history. so that you never know the power that exists within you, so that you never know that you are the powers that be. Because we keep giving power to the idea that somewhere out there are the powers that be who do not want us to unite, who control everything that we do. We give power to that. This was our planet. We have something unique inside of us. And as long as we remain divided and distracted, and we allow ourselves to live inside of a house that does not want us to know our history, we continue to give up the powers. We continue to give up the powers that be within. We are the powers that be. I want to bring up something. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Audre Lorde. She was an activist, born in 1934, and she passed in 1992. She came out as a lesbian, and she was an activist not only for her community, but she was an activist for gay rights, and she was an activist for women's rights. The thing that we mistake, the thing that we miss when we, as Black African people, when we decide to take on the world's problems, the world's injustices along with ours, the mistake we make is believing that all injustice is equal injustice. Do not confuse me when I say this. I am not saying that I do not care about women's rights, that I do not care about the suffering of those in Africa who can't even identify as LGBTQ. I'm not saying that I do not see this, or that, I'm saying that this is not unjust. What I am saying is, when we as Black African people fight for everyone's rights, women's rights would be all women's rights. We are not fighting for our rights. When we fight for racial injustice, we are fighting for everyone else's racial injustice. We are not fighting for Black African injustice. Our injustice cannot be compared to any injustice on this planet. When we fight for ourselves, hear me when I say this, when we fight for ourselves, just ourselves, as Black African people, we put ourselves first. That means we fight for every injustice that every Black African person has faced. And we put that first, instead of putting those who identify as white first and allowing them to reap the benefits. But we put ourselves first because we are the only ones who do not have our own house. We are the only ones who are still dependent on a system of ignorance. We are the only ones, by large majority, who still speak the primary languages of those who once enslaved us. It is very crucial, because I understand that some people may not be in the Americas. You may be in the Caribbean, you may be on the continent. If you are watching this, you may be in Europe. Understand that when we suffer in America, we all should feel that pain. When we suffer in Congo, we all should feel that pain. When we suffer in South Africa, we all should feel that pain. When we suffer in Europe, we all should come together and feel that pain. We have to stop allowing, as Audre Lorde said, their tools to keep us divided. What she said was, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never allow us to bring about genuine change. We're using their tools of division. They created this. We were not divided across the Caribbean as we are. We were not divided in Africa as we are. Even in the Americas, we were not divided. We believe that we need passports. It is our birthright to be able to travel back home to the continent, but we have to have passports. We shouldn't even have to pay for ancestry DNA tests, but we do. and we've never said anything about it. We just pay for it. There is so much that we are facing as Black African people that we do not fight for because we do not think about fighting for these things. What people don't understand is that when you get into relationships and you believe that you are growing because we're supposed to grow, you put your friendships, you put your partner first. More so, you put your partner first. Imagine if your partner identifies as white and you are constantly putting that person first because you're taught that in order to be selfless, I have to put my partner first. We are missing the red flags. The first major red flag that we missed was when they told us that they needed us to stay in the United States, that they told us to get citizenship from those who once enslaved us. The second red flag was when they promised our ancestors 40 acres and a meal and then said, psych. But we continue to stay for the aesthetic, for the idea that we need to be part of a civilized society because we were already far too gone. Too many of us did not want to go back. Too many of us wanted to pass. We are in danger when we give up our power. And when the entity who identifies as president here in the United States is insistent on altering our history, our pain, for his narcissism, insistent on altering our pain, it is our pain. We have every right to tell our story while you call it fake. While you have news articles, print out stories suggesting how now that Trump is making changes to the Smithsonian's, the truth will be restored. This is what they are saying. This is how they are gaslighting you. And we continue to fight inside of the house of ignorance because we don't believe that we have the power to come together and unite and build our own house together. Our own house with no borders. No need for passports, where we can become a union, strong in union, strong in unity. What they are doing is trying to ensure that the next generations that come up, that as you come from the transatlantic, as you come from the Caribbean, you come from the continent, you come from wherever, that you never know the truth, which is how they can allow a system to tell us how long we can or cannot wear our hair. How much different was that from the days of the transatlantic? Like I said, the history is playing on repeat, but in different formats. They want to ensure that the next time they execute chattel slavery, that it will be a success. And I would hate to just see us line up together with our hands folded, marching back onto those plantations, because we did not believe we had the power to build our own house. You do not need to be inside of a house that continues to control how you wear your own hair, that continues to control your history, that does not allow you space to grieve. We cannot grieve alongside them. We can't. They want to remain with the 1500 state of mind. So since they want to remain with a 1500 state of mind, then leave them. Let them stay with that 1500 state of mind. Because although you think You'll say you think that you are growing, you know, that you are able to grow inside of these interracial relationships. How are you growing if you remain dependent? If you remain divided from your roots? We as Black African people have a different responsibility when it comes to getting inside of relationships. We as Black African people have a different responsibility when it comes to getting involved in relationships. If we are not thinking about our independence, if we are not pushing each other, challenging each other to rid our systems of the colonialism within, of the supremacy within, if we are not fighting and thinking creatively of ways of how we can build independence, of how we can place our home continent, Africa, on the map in a way that it has never been on the map before, if we are not thinking of this in these relationships, then these relationships are hindering us. These relationships are not beneficial to us because I promise you, those who identify as white are not thinking about your independence, because their educational system has left them with a 1500s consciousness. Their educational system wants to leave them with a 1500s consciousness when it comes to you. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. But when you understand who the master is, then you'll understand just how powerful you are. They are not the masters. We are the masters. We are the masters and we are the powers that be. And we give up our power when we allow entities that identify as white to alter our history, to mind manipulate us, to reverse psychology us into believing that we are racist, for protecting ourselves, for unifying with one another, for putting each other first. It is a game, and we keep falling for it. The only way that we can rise is by getting back to our powers within. But when you remain inside of a house that wants to keep you asleep and put air quotes around the word woke, to again manipulate you in thought, to trigger you emotionally, you remain dependent. We remain dependent. And we remain powerless. Because we do not believe collectively that we are the powers that be. And how much power we have given up.